topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask Good Questions podcast, broadcasting live every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on W4CY Radio at W4CY.com. This week and every week, we will reach for a higher purpose in money and life, as well as a focus on health and wellness. Now, let's join your host, Bonita Bell Anderson, as together we start with Asking Good Questions.
Welcome to the Ask Good Questions podcast. I am your host, Bonita Bell Anderson, and we've got a fabulous topic and a lot of things that are going on in the world today that are going to be interesting to you as in regards to finances and all things money. So with that, I have a fantastic guest today who has been around, who knows his stuff. His name is Tony Bradshaw. And with that, I would like to invite him to the podcast stage.
Hey, Bonita. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. Thanks for coming. So everyone, if you're not familiar with Tony yet, then let me give you a little bit of an introduction about this guy. He's the author of several books, including Millionaire Choice, Millionaire or Not, You Can Choose. He's host of the Millionaire Choice show, Make the Choice, Create Your Plan. He's the founder of Purpose of Wealth live events series, and he's released 31 Days to Get Money Smart and launched the Get Business Smart podcast. I don't think he has any time to do anything else. He's been in business leadership for over 25 years in director, VP, CIO, and COO level roles. He became enamored with digital technology, which I think you're going to have a wonderful time today hearing his thoughts about this. And in 1996, as a mechanical engineer, this is, my thought every time Tony, just to tell you, as whenever I would see, being a financial advisor, whenever I would see a mechanical engineer coming into the office, he was usually coming in with his spreadsheet, right?
Yes.
Well, he switched careers in 2001 to focus full-time on digital technology and business when he joined the Dave Ramsey organization, which I know very, very well. Most people recognize the Dave Ramsey name. And he led the company's digital transformation. He's been instrumental in digital marketing, product technology, and strategic leadership for company growth from 3 million to 125 million. So, Tony, with that, do you have anything to add to that introduction?
No, I think you were pretty thorough there, Bonita. Matter of fact, I was listening to that thinking, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And how incredible he really is.
Yeah. And actually, if you see, I can tell being a Northwest, Pacific Northwest girl, he's from Nashville. And as you listen to him, you'll be able to, there's a little bit of a twang that I pick up with my ears, Tony.
Yeah, I've lost a lot of my accent. I went to school in Florida, and I think that's where I started losing it, and then just working with different people over the years. And Nashville is a very national type city. There's a lot of people moving here. I just heard not too long ago, I think it was, I live in Williamson County, which is just south of Nashville, and someone told me that the new car registrations in Williamson County, I think it was either 40 or 60% of them were from California right now.
What?
So it's a huge influx of people coming in from different states and different places.
Yeah. Well, Tony, I mean, you started as a mechanical engineer. I was like teasing about mechanical engineers, but you made a hard pivot really into digital technology and business in 2001. And that's walking away from one career to go into something totally different. What was that like?
Yeah, it was challenging. I got out of school as an engineer, and so I started doing engineering professionally in 1994. And my boss came to me while I got there because one of the first things I realized is I had to learn about technology because I was on the new computer system, which I'd never used. And so this would have been 94. And I'm like, I better learn how to do this if I'm going to do this job. Right. So I did what I knew to do, which is go to the bookstore, start learning about computers. So I got computer magazines. I probably had 5 different computer magazines coming to my house every month. I had books. I read all kinds of stuff. And so that eventually led me into web technology when I figured out you could write databases and do applications online. And that became fascinating. That was probably about 1998 when I got into that.
I was creating a website. I was doing the same thing in 98.
Yeah. And so that led me to Dave Ramsey's. And, the thing was, I went to work for Dave or applied for Dave. It was in a Christian classifieds advertisement at our church. And I saw that and I'm like, I'm going to apply for this. So I did. And 3 weeks later, I was working for the man, but I wasn't sure I could do what he wanted me to do. So it was risky because I'm like, I don't even know. I told my wife that I think the night before one of the interviews, honey, I don't even know if I can do what they want me to do. And so
nobody really knew.
Yeah.
Right. Well, but now fast forward, you helped that organization grow from 3 million to 125 million. Wow.
Yeah, it was a pretty amazing ride. We were doing some really cutting edge stuff in the early years. I mean, it was a very digital, entrepreneurial friendly environment. Dave wasn't digital. He didn't hire any digital people. Like it was really like me and one other person. And then we brought some other people in and we launched subscription-based websites in 2001. So that wasn't my idea. That was another gentleman's idea to do that. But I was one of the ones that implemented it. So because that guy couldn't implement it, he couldn't implement. So we ended up putting that up. We ended up doing online ticketing systems for events. I built that system out in summer of 2001. We launched podcasting in 2006. We launched budgeting tools in, I think, 2005. Yeah. So we had our own online budgeting system. I think it was pre-Mint. I'd have to go see when Mint was founded, but we were probably one of the earliest ones on there. So a lot of innovation from 2001 to 2010. And then things changed a little bit in the environment. I was actually running all of digital and technology. And then in 2009, I hired a lady to come in and help take the digital marketing department to the next level. And then 9 months later, she got promoted to be a chief marketing officer. And so my marketing team that I had built, which was about 15 people, actually went with her into this new, system. And I lost a lot of my influence at that point because then I became a tech guy, not a digital business guy. And things shifted a lot for me. It wasn't as fun anymore.
I've been there, done that. I have had times I realized along my journey that I was never going to be a good employee for somebody else. I liked being the one that was calling the shots. And so, yeah, I'm hearing you. Well, you've got a book called Millionaire Choice. And I love that idea because it's like wealth is a decision and it's not luck. What was there a moment in your life where you kind of decided that?
Yeah. I was 25 years old when I got my first W-2 out of college, and I had made $39,000. And when I saw that number, I was shocked because I'm sitting here living at home with my mom and dad, paying $200 a month in rent. I'm living in a studio bedroom apartment, which was actually our living room. So it was a big room. I had a couch, I had a desk, I had a bed. I mean, it had a lot of room, and I would just go in there and crash, and do my thing. And when I saw that number, 39 grand, I realized I had made 39,000, but I was also $16,000 in debt. I had about 13,000 on a car note and about 3,000 in credit cards. I had bought a computer, because I needed a computer, so I bought one for about $2,000. And I think I had $1,000 in just miscellaneous expenses that I had racked up on a credit card. But when I saw that, I'm like, man, I just really messed up last year. And so because of that, I did what I naturally do, which is if I don't understand something, I go read about it. I go learn about it. So I started picking up money magazines like Kiplinger's magazine, Smart Money magazine, a few of those, got a few books, and started reading. And then I realized, money's really not that complicated. It's really just a simple math problem. And once you understand the rules, then you can actually make a difference. And I had to laugh when you were talking about spreadsheets earlier, because that's exactly what I did. I took the things that I learned and I put it into a spreadsheet, and I had my spending money. I had my earnings first in there, and then I had my spending money, my debt money, and my investing money. Just really 4 categories of income. And I figured out what to do with it. And that's what showed me that I could be a millionaire by the time I was age 40. And so that's what I started working on. It's a very simple plan. Just really repositioned my cash flow to get my cash moving in the right direction. Instead of flowing away from me, it started flowing into assets.
Yeah. I've always felt like everything, no matter if I'm talking about financial education topics or if I'm talking about health and wellness, everything we do is moment to moment decisions about how we're going to behave. And I don't think this is any different. And so with that, I want to ask you about this 1% better every day.
Yeah.
What's it actually mean, Tony?
Yeah. So the whole idea, if you think about compound interest, right, in money, you put in money a little bit over time. It just keeps growing because it's compounding daily. It's compounding monthly, over time. So that's really what the 1% better rule is. It's about investing in yourself and trying to make yourself just that little bit better every day, that 1% better, so that you can rack up over time and ended up in a pretty good place. So in my case, it started when I was really young because my mom and dad, my mom ran convenience stores. So I would get stuck at the convenience store quite often. And I didn't have anything to do except read magazines off the magazine rack. So I started learning about cars, and I would read Carcraft magazine and Hot Router magazine. And that's where I learned how to rebuild engines. So I rebuilt my first car, junk car, when I was 14, and then rebuilt the engine, I think somewhere around 15 or 16 years old. But I did that all from car magazines. It was just reading and learning. And then Chilton's automotive manual, which, if you're familiar with those, are like phone book level thick things. And my dad had one, so I used that on my car. And I rebuilt my first engine doing that. So I also learned how to fish out of magazines as well. And then I started educating the neighborhood kids on how to bass fish. What kind of lures do you use? What colors do you use? How do you tie the knots? Where do you put the lures in the water to get the, so just all the stuff you learn. Yeah. So when it came to money, that was really the thing that happened. Is I just started picking up magazines, started learning about money. Computers, the same thing, right? When I started learning about computers, just read magazines, read books, learn something new. And then my first year at Dave Ramsey's, I actually was put into a leadership role within the first 90 days that I was there. But the people that I was put in leadership over kind of rebelled about it. They didn't like it. They didn't appreciate it. They complained about it. And what that told me at that point is I felt like God was giving me a clue to pay attention to. And so that leadership role got pulled away from me. So I was only in leadership for about 2 weeks. But what it did is it transformed how I was thinking. Mm-hmm. So I went, you know what? I think God's trying to tell me something. I need to learn how to be a better leader. So for the next year, that's what I did. I read books and poured into myself. And then that opportunity came again the next year. And then that was where my career really took off at Dave's, because I had full responsibility of what was going on the internet. Yeah. And that's the principle. It's just 1% better every day. Just try to do a little bit better every day, learn something new, improving yourself, versus the opposite, right, Bonita, is, hey, let's scroll on YouTube or scroll on Facebook or watch Netflix or watch Amazon Prime or Hulu. And those are things that don't build your future. They actually tear it down. So you really want to invest in yourself and invest in things, not just money, but in things that are going to return a dividend or return value back to you over time. Right. That's what the 1% better rule is. Yeah.
You're basically saying choices. You're talking about those choices that you make every day, how you spend your time. Right. So I feel like a lot of times people will get discouraged. Right. So we're recording this on a Wednesday. So what would a typical Wednesday look like for someone who wants to keep going, but they're going, oh, this is too hard?
Oh, on a Wednesday, hump day, huh? So yeah, I think the biggest things I see people need to do if they really want to do better is they've got to change a couple things. It starts with your mindset, just like I did. I was spending all my money back in the day, and I decided I didn't want to do that. So I needed to shift. So that was a mindset shift. So that's the first thing that's got to shift for people, is their mindset. The next thing they need to do, and it can come in little groupings, but like you need to create a vision for your future. So most people do not have the power to create a vision for themselves. So like, when you think about how popular Dave Ramsey is, right? Well, why is he so popular? Because most people don't have the ability to envision a different future. So what are they doing?
Right.
They're borrowing Dave's vision for their future. When Dave says, hey, you can be debt free. Well, that's what they're doing. They're borrowing Dave Ramsey's vision for their future because they themselves don't have one. And that's fine. I would like them to think a little bit bigger than that, but most people can't jump from being broke to being millionaires or millionaire mindset. They have to jump to go, hey, I can't pay my bills, to like, oh, I can pay my bills. Right. Then they can move to the next step, and then they can take another step forward. So those are kind of the three keys. One, your mindset shift, got to get a vision for something different. And then you got to start taking steps or baby steps to activate what you're doing there. So for me, Bonita, when I was 25, I basically realized I was broke. So that was my mindset shift. So I made a millionaire choice. I'm going to become a millionaire. I had to learn something new, which was getting money smart. That's millionaire key number 3 in my book. And then I had to take some action towards that. I had to create a vision. The vision was, hey, I'm going to be a millionaire by the time I'm 40. And then I had to take action towards that, which was me repositioning my cash flow and starting to invest in something, right? So I didn't make big investments. I just made, about $1,000 a month is what I started investing. So in about, 18 months, I had $18,000.
Yeah. Well, so if somebody's going, oh, 1%, that should be easy. But if somebody is thinking, how long is it going to take before I'm going to see something that's going to motivate me and so 1% every day, do you try to quantify that? Like what's a reasonable amount of time that you're going to see some kind of difference?
Yeah. So the thing is, you want to build consistency over time. So the 1% better rule is going to grow you by degrees. You're going to have spurts where you might pour in a little bit more than 1%, right? So like in my case, when I got into technology and started learning about the internet, I mean, that's pretty much all I did. Like it was not much. There wasn't much else. It was like, oh man, I love this. And it's, building apps and writing code and all this stuff. And that lasted for, a few years. And then I went to work for Dave Ramsey's, and it continued because I would stay up late, till flipping midnight, trying to write code and learn stuff and do things. Right. So it was all new and fresh. So I had a 5-year window there that I was really aggressive on, but then it kind of subsided a little bit, and then I would hit something else that I needed to shift on. And so you'd hit pockets. So it's not always going to be, 1%. You might get a few percent better per day. When you're really hyper focused on something. And then other times you might hit lulls. We had 6 children. So what do you think 6 children did to my focus? it kind of tore it down a little bit. So I slowed down. Kidding. Yeah, I slowed down during those years, right? And then now the kids are older. The last 10 years, I've been a lot more engaged and aggressive in what I've been doing. Since I left Dave's, actually, since 2016. So I've been more committed. I've learned a lot more about money now in the last 10 years than I did at the 15 years I was with Dave. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, and so you just got to look at these opportunities and find these things that you can do. One of the things I tell people, like when it comes to money, Bonita, is if you read just 12 money books, 1 book a month for 12 months, you're going to be one of the most financially educated, smart people on the planet. Yeah, it's just 12 books. It's that simple. And that's only about 6 hours a month. So if you were to take 6 hours a month to read a book, then you're going to be like freaking genius about money, where money comes. Now you still have to apply that. So you got to choose what to do with it. So you want to try to create this forward momentum, but you're going to hit spots where you execute more, you grow a little bit more, and then you can apply it. But if you're asking for windows of opportunity where you can see change, it only took me about 90 days to go from not knowing anything about money to having a millionaire plan. Like I just started reading magazines, reading books, learning how to do it. I'm like, man, this is pretty simple. I just got to go buy mutual funds, invest in stocks, and buy real estate. That's it. Just those 3 things, and I'm going to be a millionaire. It's not that complicated.
Well, a lot of the listeners they're heading towards retirement if they're not already there. Is it ever too late to start?
No. And here's a great guy I had on my show a couple of weeks ago. I believe his name was David Nassif, I think. He was in his early 60s, 62 years old, and he was broke. David
has been on this show as well.
Yeah. Broke, 62 years old, realized he didn't have any money. He had made a lot of money, but didn't have any of it. And got serious, started selling insurance. He got very serious about it. And I think it was within, it's either 5 or 7 years, he was a millionaire. So he went from broke to millionaire in 5 to 7 years in his 60s. Now he's a multimillionaire. And it's only been like 5 years. I think he's 72 now. Maybe you're 73.
He had to make a decision. You know, it's like making a decision, going through the steps. So yeah, exactly. So let's talk about your emergency rule. What in the heck does that mean?
Emergency rule? You got a little guest there in the background. Emergency rule. Well, I think what you're talking about is the emergency fund. And what I talk about now is the new emergency fund. So the old emergency fund, which, you know, Dave Ramsey teaches, a lot of other people teach, is 3 to 6 months in living expenses, in a cash or a money market account. So cash or a combination of cash and money market, right? So that way it's liquid, so you have access to it. What I've started teaching is what I call the new emergency fund. And it's a slightly different breakdown. You still have the cash and money market component because you do need to stay liquid, but you add in a gold and silver component and you add in a cryptocurrency component.
Okay. And we're going to talk about this.
Yeah. Now, the reason you do that is because when you look at the last decade, last 10 years, cash has lost 50% of its value roughly. Okay. So depending on whose statistics you look at, right? Some people would say it's lost more than that because when you look at the price of cars, when you look at the price of gasoline, when you look at all these different prices, they've gone up a lot. And a lot of them, some of it's gone up more than double, right? So that's why cash and money market loses value. The money markets do not keep up with inflation. So you're at best, you know, not even breaking even with the money market, but it's something at least, right? So whereas if you had been in gold and silver in 2017, your now would be, let's see, I think silver was around $13 an ounce. Now it's around 70, I think, somewhere around there. So you would be up about 5x, right? So you would have 500% more money if you had been in silver. If you had been in gold, I think it's about 3 or 4x. So those are the numbers, right? So if you were in cryptocurrency in 2017, you would be up about 10x right now. So you would have 10 times more money. So let's say you had a $50,000 cash account and you wanted to do this new emergency fund model.
So the $50,000 is your emergency fund.
Right. Let's just say it's 50. It might not be that much for some people, but let's just use an easy number. So 50,000, I would personally take about half of that and I would put that in cash and money market. So I'd have about 25,000 in cash and money market. And I would take the other 25,000 and divide it over gold, silver, and cryptocurrency. And you can break that down however you want. Some people are going to be more comfortable having more cryptocurrency. Some people are going to be more comfortable holding gold and silver. I had a client and he was much more comfortable holding gold and silver than he was cryptocurrency. So he bought a little bit of crypto, I think about $30,000. He's now up, since crypto's down right now, he's probably just doubled it. So his money's doubled. He bought gold and silver, and I think he bought about $50,000 in gold and silver. So about 30,000 in crypto, about 50,000 gold and silver. And his gold and silver's up, like 3x. So, but his cash and money market account is actually down because of inflation. So that's the model.
I mean, it's basically stable, but if you factor in inflation, then yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I mean, no, inflation's real. I mean, car prices are ridiculous. Yeah. My dad just bought a new truck. You know how much he's paying for his new truck? $1,200 a month.
That's crazy.
I think the truck was $70,000. Back when we were little, trucks would be like $15,000, $16,000, $18,000, right? So yeah, so that's the deal. We're looking at a big shift in the financial world, which I'm sure you're familiar with. There's a lot of stuff going on right now.
So would you say 50,000 is a good, I mean, some people might go, that's a lot, because a lot of people are one big surprise bill away from disaster.
Well, I think the emergency fund is relative to what your income is and to what your expenses are. Yeah. So like some people might, 15 grand might be a big emergency fund, for others, 100 grand might be a small emergency fund, right? So, when I was making money, we minimized our expenses pretty heavily. So we were house debt free. The only thing we had was, gas bill, food bill, electric and water. Like that was it. And when that's all you've got, I mean, your emergency fund can be extremely small because you're only paying out about, maybe $3 grand a month, depending on the size of the family. So it's very low expenses. You're like, I can live a whole year on 36 grand, right? So you don't need a really big emergency fund. You can pour most of it into investments. But for other people, they may have more expenses, but they may have low income too. So, just having anything in a retirement, in an emergency fund is a big deal because they're so strapped, right? They've got so many payments. I counseled one lady. You got to remember, Bonita, I haven't had a credit card since like 1998. So some people, though, I've met with some people in counsel, they had like 15 credit cards.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Because in 1995, when I realized I wanted to be a millionaire, I'm like, debt's bad, I'm out. And I just started paying everything off. And 18 months later, I had everything paid off.
Right.
It was all gone. And I was debt free, but then I found a fiance and she had 20 grand in debt. So I started paying on her debt.
That's a big thing that happens a lot is you'll marry your opposite. Mm-hmm. So the other kind of level of people that are out there are people that are retired and on a fixed income. Does this emergency fund change or not?
That's
maybe you would say it depends on the level of what the fixed income is as well.
Yeah, it does, because like my dad, I hate to say this, he's working full time. He's 74 years old. Actually, he's 75. I'm sorry. And he's working full time and he doesn't have a plan B. So he's basically on Social Security if he's not working. He did not do any savings. He did not do any retirement stuff. I've tried to talk to him. He just hasn't done it. Another relative actually is doing pretty good. He's got like 4 pensions and lots of stuff, lots of options, So that is, that's a different model. So it's really going to be relevant to who the person is, what their situation is. I think, unfortunately, there's a lot of people in their 60s and 70s that are not getting adequate enough money coming in, especially when you think about, Medicare supplements. Just those 2 things alone can eat up, a quarter to a half of a Social Security check.
Right.
So, you just don't have a luxury of having a lot of options. Now, the one thing I would say, though, is, and this is hard because, I think, I'm at the bubble age where technology, I was coming in technology. I'm a lot more knowledgeable about technology than most people my age. But if you go up another 10 years above me, that group of people are very uncomfortable with technology. They're not very savvy with it. And so it's kind of still a new thing. But there are a lot of opportunities out there to make money. And I think that's where the older generation needs to start looking, is to go, hey, what can I do to make a little side hustle income?
Right.
And not just sit and expire, don't just watch TV, whatever you're doing.
Hey, you're getting back to mindset, aren't you?
Yeah. Stop doing it and do something else, right? Because you can go make income. Just like David. He learned about selling insurance. Next thing you know, he's a multimillionaire. And so that's the thing I think I would tell people to take away, is to go, hey, you're not done yet. If you can walk, you can breathe, you can talk on a phone, you can do stuff on the internet. You can still make money. You can make, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month in additional income. If you go find a decent side hustle where people need you, Right. My wife works for a company that's called the Learning Zone, I think, and they just babysit kids all day. Right. So I'm going for these women that are out there. Go do that, because you're perfect for it. You're wired for it. You're grandma level. Go in, hug on these babies, and just love on these babies. So there's lots of opportunities out there if people just look for them. Right.
Well, would you say that whole mindset thing would be the first step for the Millionaire Plan?
Yeah, absolutely. It's what I did. When I wrote the book, I didn't really think of it that way. But once I read the book through it again, I'm like, oh, that's the first step, is the mindset shift. And that's where I woke up. I had what I call my financial awakening. I'm like, this isn't good. I need to change. So yeah, it was definitely that step. And then I have 10 other steps inside of there. But mindset, vision, then you have to go learn something and that you can apply.
Right.
And then the end of the book is the Millionaire Plan, which is where I sat down with my spreadsheet and mapped it out. 15-year plan. Here it is. I'm going to be a millionaire in 15 years. And that was the execution, what you have to go execute. So you have to move from mindset to execution. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't do that well with the execution side of things.
Right. Well, that was the next thing I was thinking about was, what do you think is the biggest myth that people think it's not possible for them?
Yeah, well,
what holds them back?
Yeah. Well, I think there's three things that I teach that are myths that people do. One of them is money's the root of all evil. So we actually create a negative perception in our minds. And so if you believe in manifestation, I kind of have gotten to the point where I do believe in that more now than I did in the past. I was taught against it. But I think that what you think about, what you focus on, you actually can manifest, you can bring it to pass. So when you're thinking that money's the root of all evil, you're kind of like the anti-manifestation of wealth. So you have to get over that, because that's not what the Bible says. The Bible says, for the love of money is the root of all evil, not money is the root of all evil. So people misquote that, and they don't even know it. They don't even know that it comes from the Bible.
Right.
But that's a big one. The next one would be the rich people got lucky. Rich people did not get lucky. They got prepared, and then they took advantage of their preparation, which is what I did. I had to learn about technology. Then an opportunity presented itself. I took advantage of that opportunity, and then I started going to rise up in leadership. So those opportunities there, but you have to be prepared for those opportunities if you're going to take advantage of them. Yeah. And then the last one is rich people are bad, so I don't want to be rich. Right. And so that's another kind of like anti-manifestation thing that people tell themselves. And I believe all three of those, Bonita, are really just excuses on why we're not rich, because we haven't put in the effort. But we can't just say, oh man, I just am not working hard enough. I got to work. Like you don't find people saying that, or they're saying, oh, I haven't read enough, or I haven't done. They don't judge themselves. They don't self-judge. So they have to then put these blockers or excuses up. And that's what you see is, oh, money's evil. I don't want to be rich, or rich people are bad, or the rich people got lucky. If I was that lucky. It's just not true. None of those three things are true. They're just excuses that people make on why they're not building wealth.
One thing I've always told people is, just think, if you did better with your money, how much more you could go out and do. You could be a resource. You could use tools to help better, your community in a lot of different ways.
Absolutely.
It's again, it's a whole mindset thing. How would you think that this whole millionaire plan idea is different from budgeting or saving?
Yeah. So the hard thing about budgeting, if you start with budgeting, which is what some people teach first, they're like, oh, you got to learn how to budget. And it's the main thing. The budget will restrict your thinking. And here's what I mean by that. When you budget, it's usually based off what your current income level is. And what happens is you end up investing what's left over. Yeah. So, and that's the wrong mindset. Yeah, that's the wrong mindset. You need to invest first, like figure out where you're going, and then put a plan together to invest that number. So like, for example, if you knew you needed to invest $2,000 a month, so that's $24,000 a year, that's a pretty good number. Then you're going to figure out how to go make that money. So you want to think from an invest first mindset as much as possible. So you think goal, that's a goal oriented financial plan versus a budget friendly financial plan, right? So you want to flip it. And what'll happen is you start with the investing mindset first. That will then shape your budget. So your budget will follow it versus leading it. And so that's the big teaching that I've come up with. And so, when I started, it was like, oh, I need to have this much money doing this much into this. Now I had free cash flow at that point when I was 25. So I just really quickly went from, hey, don't spend $39,000, don't go into debt, reposition your cash flow. So what I did is I very quickly just broke my budget into three pieces. One of them was, hey, here's my living money. It was roughly $1,000 a month. Here's my debt money, which I'm going to use to pay off my debt. It's roughly $1,000 a month. And here's my investing money. And it was also roughly $1,000 a month. And that's all I did. I just took basically those three components and then started working on my cash flow and building some wealth. And I was able to, get started, keep moving. I would probably structure that plan a little differently now because I'm a lot smarter, but that was at least got me moving in the right direction.
Right.
And that's what we want to talk about here, is creating forward momentum, where you can execute small things that build big time value over time. And then your muscles will get stronger. You'll learn more. You'll get more focused. You'll end up raising your wealth money, which is what I teach people, is you want to raise your wealth, lower your living money as much as possible, but raise your wealth money as much as possible. So don't think 15%, which is what most financial advisors teach you. That's what Dave Ramsey teaches. Think 30, 40, 50%. Like, how
Yeah.
can you get into a position where you could invest 50% of your income?
Yeah.
You might not, you might not start there, but if you can get to that point, you're going to be in a really good place.
Right. So talking about the future, what are your best thoughts for passing this on to children and grandchildren?
Yeah, and I have 6 children, so I'm trying to figure that one out.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, my children learned to be very frugal because they grew up in a Dave Ramsey household. So
Yeah.
they're very conservative. They don't go out and waste a lot of money. They don't spend a lot of money. They're pretty conservative. What I didn't teach them was ambition. I didn't teach them well about investing. I got my son started on some investing, but I didn't get it to really stick. So I'm still trying to figure that one out. But some of the things I've learned are you need to talk to them about vision. You need to talk to them about possibilities. So you might need to shed some vision. So give you an example. I was just talking to my oldest son the other day. I'm like, dude, if you could invest $1,500 a month, that's $18,000 a year. In 3 years, that's like $60,000. And if it grows well in the right investments, that could look like closer to $100,000 if you get in the right stuff. So he's going, oh, I could have $100,000 in 3 years. So that starts to connect with him.
Yeah.
And then he starts going, okay, that's like life changing. Like, that's a real deal. Like, that's a lot, because he wants to buy a house. And I'm like, dude, 3 years, you got $100,000, you can go buy a house. So those are some of the things that find out what's important to them, motivates them, and they get there. My other son, on the other hand, they're hyper focused on paying off student loan debt right now. So I can't really talk to them about investing,
Right.
because they don't want to hear it. They don't want to listen to it. So they just want to stay on the
I
student loan
think
debt.
first and foremost, you just need to be an example.
Yes, exactly.
That's the number one thing. Just be an example, and hopefully they'll come along.
Yeah. Now, there is one thing I am working on. I haven't gotten it finished yet, but I did put together a 12-year monetary program for kids. So I'm a big believer that you don't need 1 year of financial literacy, which is basically what we get right now, is that one semester or 1 year. I believe you need 12 years of that. And I believe everything Dave teaches pretty much should be taught by grade 6. So first through 6th grade, you learn everything that Dave Ramsey teaches. Then in 7th grade, you move up in your investment principles, and then you continue to build on that over the next, through high school, so that when you get out of high school, you literally have like a financial degree that you could go do anything.
Right.
I'm a big believer the bankers don't want us to know this stuff. So that's why they don't teach it, because it's not, I'm nothing special. I don't have to, it's not hard to figure this out. Right. So you go, hey, we should be teaching all the kids about money and how to invest, and that's a no brainer. But why isn't it being done? It's because the bankers don't want it done, and the government is led by the bankers. So that's why, it's because those two forces in tandem, they don't want people, because if you had a nation full of millionaires or a nation full of future millionaires, those two groups would not be in power. So the country would look very different if everybody grew up understanding wealth and how money works.
I'm kidding. Well, I want to make sure we leave enough time for this. Now, I have already told you that I'm a little bit worried about cryptocurrency, but I really want your thoughts about, there's a lot of talk about cryptocurrency replacing the dollar. From where you sit, what do you want to say about that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not good. So is cryptocurrency here? Yes. Is it here to stay? Yes. Is it good? No, it's not good. So when you look at financial systems for thousands of years, every fiat currency has failed in history, every single one. There's not one fiat currency, which is what our US dollar is, that has survived. So we are at the end of the US dollar. That's what I believe. I believe that the US dollar will see a major collapse probably starting in 2029 and go through 2031. It may go a little bit longer than that, but during that time is when you're going to see a huge push for cryptocurrency. The digital ID is already here. They're pushing that. So you're going to continue to see these kinds of things ramp up as they phase out the US dollar. Virtually every central bank in the world is gobbling up gold right now. So they're moving away from the US dollar. I think if I remember correctly, the numbers were that U.S. Treasuries were kind of like the number one place people put money across the world. It was like 70 or 80% of all cash reserves were put in U.S. dollars. That number now, I believe, is down to 50%. So you can already see the system is getting changed. And so what we're looking at is a financial system change, and they are moving us from a U.S. dollar-based system onto a cryptocurrency-based system. One of the other things they're wanting to do, Bonita, not to scare you, but it's just a reality, is they're wanting to take every piece of land and every asset and put it on the blockchain so that it's all digitally managed. So you don't have paper deeds and things like that anymore. They will all be blockchain tied to the blockchain. And these are not good things. They are part of what we call like a global control grid or global control system. And that's kind of brought in by the World Economic Forum and the International Monetary Fund and these other big entities that kind of sit over the top of the whole financial system. But this is what they're trying to do. I hope they fail miserably at it, but it is what's on the radar. And the reason I pick 2029 and 2030 and 2031 is because that's the 100th year anniversary of the Great Depression. And so
no kidding. It is.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Some people believe that we're going to see a financial collapse like this year or next year. I don't think it's going to happen then. I think it is going to happen in 2029, 2030, 2031, just because of the dates and things like that. And I could go into detail about that, but yeah, cryptocurrency is here to stay. Now there's over 15,000 cryptocurrencies. Think about that, right? So 15,000
like companies.
Yeah, different projects that are out there that people have created.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, so my guess is when it's all said and done, there might be 10 cryptocurrencies that are actually used. Not 1,000, not 100, but probably about 10. I think Bitcoin is the main one. I think XRP is a big one. So XRP is around $1 a coin right now. I actually got into XRP when it was at $0.25. So I would say look at XRP. That's supposedly the banker coin, and supposedly BlackRock, Larry Fink and BlackRock are heavily involved in XRP. So those would be a couple that are going to be on deck. Cardano is another one that's up there, and then Ethereum's still number 2 on the market. So we'll see what happens. There's Stellar's another one that's out there. So I would and if I was investing or buying, this is something I learned through the School of Hard Knocks. If you're going to buy crypto, just keep it really simple. Buy the ones that are kind of like in the top 10 and just stick with those, because most of the top 10 are still here 10 years after I got in. But I played with some that were not in the top 10 and they're not around. So, yeah. So,
and I'm really feeling if you want to do that, then have it be outside of your main assets. Have it be something that, because I don't feel like you should be investing in something that you really don't understand at all either.
Yeah. Well, the reality is for crypto, there's a couple things you can do that are a little bit safer. One, in any kind of risky investment, you should never invest more than like 5% of your portfolio. I would say, depending on what size your portfolio is. So if you have $1 million portfolio and you put 50 grand in, that's not the end of the world if you lose it. But another way you can do it, I think it's called Grayscale. I forget, but there's a couple of these companies that have grown up and they've created mutual funds. So they've created like crypto mutual funds. So they will spread your money out across 10 or 20 different cryptos so that you get a similar benefit to like being in a mutual fund versus being just in one stock. Now, what that'll do is if Bitcoin goes 10x, you may not see a 10x return on your mutual fund based crypto, but it could possibly be a little bit safer than if you were just all in one cryptocurrency. So that would be something to look at. But I think it's called Grayscale. Let me pull it up real quick. And there's several of these companies that do that. Now, another strategy that I'll throw out there, just information for you, Bonita, is Grayscale is the company. Yeah. Okay. And there's a company called I Trust Capital.
Trust Capital?
Yeah, I Trust Capital. And you can actually buy cryptocurrency in your Roth IRA or in an IRA. And I really like the idea of buying cryptocurrencies inside of a Roth IRA, especially if you stick with like the top 3, like say XRP, Bitcoin, maybe Ethereum. The reason I like that is because let's say you bought 1,000 XRP for $1,000 today. All right. It's $1, right? Some people believe that XRP is going to go to $1,000. So what happens when you have 1,000 XRP that go to $1,000? You now have $1 million. So you have now turned in $1,000 investment into $1 million investment, right? If that happens. Now, if it turns to $100, you made it 100,000. So you turned 1,000 to 100,000, but it's all tax-free inside of that Roth IRA. Right. And I think that's, you just can't, like in a mutual fund, you can't get that kind of return. So I personally taking that kind of risk where I'm going, hey, I'm going to throw $1,000 into this cryptocurrency inside of my Roth and just see what happens. Because if it does return at that level, which you've already had quite a number of cryptos that have created that level of return, right? Ethereum in 2017 was $7. Now it's $1,400, right? Yeah. Bitcoin was like $1 in 2011. Now it's 65,000. So that has happened numerous times already. So it could continue to happen. So I would look at something like that inside of a Roth IRA because it has such huge potential versus a mutual fund that you're going to get, roughly 7 to 10% returns on. Right. It's going to take you forever to get any kind of significant return out of that specific money. So I would take a shot with the Roth IRA and put a little bit of money aside in crypto and just see what happens with it.
So Tony, we are out of time. We are done. We've got to close this up. So where can people find you and all of the resources that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to TonyBradshaw.com. Everything I do is hosted there at TonyBradshaw.com. And then I have a couple interesting things to offer to your listeners, Bonita. One is if you sign up for my newsletter, you'll get access to all 3 of my books for free. So you can download those. That's the Millionaire Choice, 31 Days to Get Money Smart. And another book that you didn't mention, which is called Creating Millionaire Families. Yes. I'm only about half done with that one. I've got to do a little bit more work on it, but you get all 3 of those books for free if you sign up for my newsletter. And then a new thing that I'm doing is called the Get Money Smart community. It's an online community with courses and things inside of it. And we're actually letting people into that for free right now. So if anybody wants to join that, you just have to click the button, fill out the little form, and then we'll get you an invitation to that group, and you'll be a free member for that group as long as I have it. So it's a really good opportunity. Eventually, that thing is going to cost about $1,200 a year to be in. So I would encourage anybody that's listening to get in now before we start charging for it.
Right. Well, and just a reminder, for all of the guests have I have like a flyer on my website. Mm-hmm. Where you can find all of this information and a link to where to find Tony. So with that, we are out of time. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, Bonita, I've really enjoyed it. You've been a great host.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for listening today and for being here on the Ask Good Questions podcast. I think we've asked some good questions today, and we will see you next time.
Today's episode is over, but we did ask good questions again, didn't we? Don't miss out as we broadcast live every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on W4CY Radio at W4CY.com. Join Bonita Bell Anderson next week for more conversations with experts on finances, retirement, behavioral finance issues, health and wellness, and more. Until then, remember to ask good questions.